Thank you. Qiao Hao smiled towards his assistant and placed the cake on the empty space Lu Jinian had emptied. It seemed rude not to offer his assistant, so she turned towards him. Do you want a slice? The assistant nodded his head, accepting. Lu Jinian turned to glare at his assistant, forcing him to swallow his words. The man then turned to smile at Qiao Hao, forcing out his next words. Thank you, Miss Qiao, but I don't really like sweet food. Oh. Qiao Hao turned and looked at Lu Jinian. At that moment, there wasn't any expression on his face. He no longer had the strict expression he had used to face his assistant, and so Qiao Hao remained oblivious to what had happened, a faint smile on her face. She passed the fork she had brought up to Lu Jinian and told him, the cake is all yours. Lu Jinian replied with a faint yay, and when Qiao Hao wasn't paying attention, he swept his assistant a glance. The man suddenly realized the situation and immediately said, Mr. Lu, I just remembered that I promised my wife that I'll be home tonight for dinner, so if there's nothing more, can I go back? Even though Lu Jinian was well aware that his assistant left because of his warning, he remained expressionless, as though nothing had happened, and nodded. Yay, I know. The assistant turned to Qiao Hao and bade her goodbye before leaving the room. After he left, Lu Jinian glanced at the time on his computer. It was dinner time, so he asked, What do you want to eat? Anything. After Qiao Hao had replied, she suddenly remembered that Lu Jinian was busy with work before she had arrived. Weren't you busy with work? Should we go after you finish? She paused for a bit, then lied, I'm not that hungry yet since I just ate some cake. Lu Jinian thought about it before passing his iPad to Qiao Hao. You can wait here. Okay. She reached for the iPad and pointed to the living room, so that she wouldn't disrupt him. I'll wait over there. Lu Jinian nodded, not saying anything. Qiao Hao smiled sweetly at him before hugging her iPad and leaving the bedroom, closing the door behind herself. Lu Jinian looked at the tightly shut door, standing in the same position for a long while before lowering his hand with a faint smile on his face. He pulled his chair and sat down to continue with his work. After he finished, the skies were already dark. He turned and took a look at the time. 2 hours had already passed. He suddenly stood up, remembering that Qiao Hao was still waiting for him in the living room. He kicked her chair aside and took large strides to the door. When he pulled it open, he saw her lying on the sofa with the iPad in her hands, watching a movie. She was afraid that to disrupt him, so she had the iPad's volume set on really low. Lu Jinian slowed, his expression turning gentle. Qiao Hao seemed to have sensed him, for she turned her head instinctively, seeing him. She placed the iPad on the sofa and sat up. With a smile on her face, she asked, You finished?